So you're rotating to a new project, installing the rear wheel of your XR650L. This is how you do it. The very first step in this whole process is removing the left and right hand spacers on your wheels if you haven't already done so. And then you're first going to wipe off any grease, grime, or dirt that may be on them, so you can then put in new waterproof grease on them. This helps with the installation process so they don't fall out as easy ultimately. A very important step in this process is definitely to wipe off any excess grease. You don't want to be attracting any more dirt than your XR already does. So I know something I've been confused about in the past is having both the spacers out at the same time. Which one goes where? The longer one goes on the sprocket side, and the shorter one goes on the brake rotor side. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and set the wheel to the side as we move on to our next step. The next step in this process is creating more space in between the brake pads, as there's too little for it to be easy to reinstall. So grab a flathead screwdriver, a cloth, and you're going to go ahead and push the piston back into the caliper. This is another point of view where you can see my motion of the flathead screwdriver to push it back in, and you're going to see where exactly on the caliper I'm putting this flathead screwdriver. Anyways, here's exactly what it looks like. These upcoming steps are perhaps my favorite. It's where you're going to go ahead and grab your long, hard shaft and wipe it off in a familiar motion so you get off any dirt, grime, or grease on it, because you want to prepare it for more waterproof grease. So as I mentioned, you're going to go ahead and grab your lube, grease, and spread it along this very long, hard shaft, as after all, you're going to be putting it in the hole for safekeeping. Now hopefully you didn't take that too inappropriately, as the hole I'm talking about is the hole in the rear wheel, as it keeps the shaft away from dirt and other contaminants. Now, here's the tip I have. The tip is simply taking the left hand adjuster, as indicated by the L, and putting it onto the shaft. It'll make your life easier momentarily. You'll see why. So now, put the shaft somewhere away from dirt, away from contaminants, as we move on to this next step. The next step in this whole process is actually putting the wheel back onto the bike. This is exciting. Some special things to note though is definitely making sure that you get the rotor in between the brake pads and the spacers are both present and installed. Make sure they don't fall out. This is one of the big reasons why we actually put grease in those holes. We don't want these spacers falling out easy, and it just makes reinstallation easier for you once again. Once you get it mostly lined up though, feel free to insert the shaft with the adjuster already on it. Notice, it made it a little easier to have it already there, which is why I recommended it. As for this next part, you're going to go ahead and install the retaining clip, the adjuster, the washer, and of course, the axle nut. Just kind of hand tighten it for now as we move on to the next step. So you may be wondering, well, what about chain? When are we going to reinstall that? And that would be right now. This is how you do it. You're going to simply set the adjuster to basically nothing, push the entire wheel forward, and just lift the chain up and over the actual sprocket. It's as simple as that. All the following steps relate to getting your chain slack correct, which while I do have another separate video on, this is a part of reinstalling your wheel. So anyways, you're going to go ahead and get that lock nut tight enough where the adjusters will not move by themselves, but you can still move them manually. It takes a little bit of work, but that's exactly where you want them to be. You'll see why momentarily. So assuming you get your chain slack right, here's your next steps that I would like you to make. Simply making sure the adjuster numbers are the exact same on both sides. This prevents your wheel from being misaligned and keeps you safe, because a misaligned wheel is definitely something dangerous. Stay tuned for the next step. The next step is simply snugking up the axle nut as much as possible with your tools again. You can use grab a wrench on one side and then your 24mm on the other side and just tighten it as much as you can with your hands. And this is all we're going to do before we use the torque wrench. With the torque wrench, you're going to set it to 65 foot-pounds torque as the factory service manual recommends, and you're going to continue to tighten it until your torque wrench reaches that value. In my case, my torque wrench will click. The final step in this process is going to your rear brake lever and pressing it a few times so your brake pads are actually engaged against your rotor. This is for your safety. And there you have it. You've successfully reinstalled your rear wheel on your XR650L. Overall, if you found this video useful, I'd appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. Feel free to check out other content on my channel here on YouTube or my Instagram, OneTerrorBike. Feel free to comment down below if you have another video you'd like to be made. Thank you guys again for your support, and stay tuned for next time.